Hey there. So, working on a 93 VFR I just picked up. I want to fit the MOSFET regulator, this new kind here, FH020AA. That's the original. So, I haven't seen any videos about this, so I thought I'd make one. Here's where the original sits. And it points diagonally down to this connector here. And what you have is a stud on this end and a nut, a captive nut on that side. So the new one is much bigger, and you can see what I'd like to do. I'd like to keep it in the stock location and mount it like that, but this stud's getting in the way. It would fit pretty good right there. So obviously you could grind that down, but if we look at the other side, it's just a, this is it right here. There's it right there. So it's just a, I don't know, it's like a bolt, but I don't know if you can see it. There's just one tiny spot weld right on the top. So I'm going to try and chisel that spot weld off, see if I can move that to a different spot and reuse it, keep the stock hardware. So let me see if I can do that. Okay, so that did not work. Tried getting it with the chisel, and that didn't work, so I ground it with the grinder, and that thing is really welded on there, so that's not coming off. So I wound up I just ground it off, and right there. Okay, so I just ground that off, and now here is where the captive nut is. And if you go straight down to this hole, it lines up just right for the new rectifier. It's just a little too small though, so you need to drill it out. This is 17/64 bit I used, and that was the perfect size to get it just to fit just right. You could use a little bigger one, I guess, but it just needed a tiny bit bigger. I don't know if you can even see, but it's bigger than these holes here. These are all stock holes. These are already all here. And then the only problem though is, if you see this weld right here, it hits the back of this thing, hits that weld, so it won't be flush. So what you want to do is, you got these here, 30 millimeter M6 bolts, 1 millimeter thread pitch. So M6, and they're 30 millimeters long, 1 millimeter thread pitch. That matches the stock hardware. So you want these two bolts, and then M6 nut, and I use 3 washers. You want a spacer the same thickness as the nut you're going to use. So for me, it was 3 washers was the exact same thickness as this nut. And so what you do is, on the bottom one from the back here, you're going to put that bolt, stick that on through, and then maybe thread it on, but you're going to thread the nut on there, so that'll hold it on. You won't need to weld anything, and it'll also act as a space. Okay, so as you can see, I got the nut on there now. So this is our new stud, just like we had over here. The only thing is when you screw this one in, you're going to have to put your 3 washers in between the rectifier and the frame here. Okay, so there we tighten down the bolt. And you can see right here, there's the nut and the 3 washers on top, just so we're not hitting that weld down here on the bottom. And then right here, that's your stock nut. Go ahead and put that on. Anyway, tighten that down. There you go. So it's lined up just right. Okay, so before I button this up, I hit that back part with some aluminum spray paint just to prevent rust where I kind of missed with the grinder. And then on this bolt here, the spacer bolt on the bottom, I put some Loctite on that. But the rest of the bolts for the regulator, you don't need any Loctite. This one though, you want that bolt or that nut to stay right where it is, and it's not coming out anytime soon. Okay, there it is, all done up. Put back the rear master cylinder. This is the wire for the OEM rectifier, but you're not going to use that, so you can just tuck it kind of behind the passenger peg here. Like I said earlier, you're going to have to lengthen the wires from your stator. Normally it's connected right here. It's the wires coming out of this connector. And on my bike they were coming through here and up under the frame through the V of the engine. But the better way for this setup is come through the V here, but then continue behind the frame, and it's this loom right here. So I'm coming. Let's see. There you go. So, you know, just keep it routed the best you can away from the motor. Pretty much the stock location. And then here I bent this a little bit, just to, it's actually holding this in place. So I just bent it up and down. And it's probably going to be better to come outside of this plastic piece, because that's right, the connectors are already outside of it. These are going to go on the bottom, and then for the top, let me show you the kit over here. So the kit I got came with obviously the rectifier, and then, you know, these parts right here. So this is going to go directly on the battery. Pretty sure we're not going to need that, and we're not going to need this red wire. These are great for, these are really nice, like waterproof crimping connectors, butt connectors, to extend the stator wire, and it's a 14 gauge wire. It's not very, you don't need big wire, it's just 14 gauge wire, and I don't know, maybe an extra foot or so. So 3 feet actually, just 3 wires. I've already done that. These are the same exact type of connectors I use though. So these are all we're going to use right here. Let's start with this fuse block. And actually, just to illustrate this better, I'm going to put the battery back in. So we can clearly see where everything's going to be. So right behind the battery, there's a space deep in the undertail here where this thing will fit perfectly. So you're going to come out. There's a spot you can come out right here. And this wire is just going to come out, and it goes to the, I think it's better, yeah. See, anyway, it's going to live down there and connect up to the positive lead. So let me show you that in one moment. Okay, so I've placed the fuse block here. And it's just sitting there behind the battery. And you can route the one side of the wire right behind the switch and behind that rubber shield. So, and I've stripped both ends of the wire. We're gonna obviously hook it up to that red plus sign. So just to show the 2 different types of connectors they give you. Let's see here. We have, what is it? So here is your, it's what your standard connector you get at the auto parts store. And you're going to install that with this guy, the red handled one. Right? And this is, we're going to put on this end of the wire to connect it to the positive side of our battery. The other one they give you is this guy. And you can see it's got 2 sets of wings on there. The one in the rear to the right is going to grab the insulation, the red part of the wire. The one on the right is going to grab onto the actual wire itself. Okay. For that, we need to use this type of crimper. I know this is in bad shape, but if you can see, it's got, there you go, it's got like a little W, maybe a wing shape, a little sharp bit right in the middle there. That's the kind you need to do these winged connectors. So what you're going to do is where the 2 wings are, they go into kind of like that. So the wings are facing that sharp bit, and when you crimp it, it'll just wind up on itself and get a really awesome crimp. But that red handled one, it's not going to work. It won't crimp it correctly. And then these guys, they plug into these. So then you get a real nice waterproof connector. Okay. So let me set that up. Okay, so very important before you do any crimping, you're going to want to take one of these little blue plugs here, and you're going to put that on the wire first with the little nipple end facing the end of the wire. And it goes on pretty easy, but make sure and do that. And then you can see here I've crimped the wire portion. And now if you can see the placement, how that blue piece is also going to get crimped on there. So let me show you that right now. Okay, so you can see here those two wings are pointing straight up on the connector, and I've got that little pointy piece on the crimper pointing straight down. And just give it a little squeeze. Okay. Put it off. And there we go. So that's on there pretty good. That's going to fit right into there. That blue piece will make it watertight. Okay, and the other end of that, just going to wrap this around here, and it's going to go right there. So that one we just used this regular style crimper. So, let me do that really quick. Okay, so there's the connector plugged all the way in. You can see the little blue plug there right inside. So I've gone ahead and done up the ground wire. Same thing. And we're going to plug that in and then route it. I think what I'm going to do, instead of routing it to the negative terminal, we're going to route it to the grounding bolt on the engine that the battery wire goes to. That way, removing the battery, it's only one side that has the extra wire. Okay, so let me see if I can do that. Okay, so there's the ground wire on top in the connector, and if you see the rubber piece behind it, that power wire, the red wire, it's going to there's a little flap right behind that, right where the two wires come over, and you want the red wire to go to the left of the flap, and then this ground wire is going to go to the right of the flap. And that's this thing right here. So here's the ground wire. I put it in a little sheath. That's coming around here, so it's going to go in front of the battery. And you can see, once you get, over here, it's just following the same path as the battery ground wire. So it's just going to go through behind the frame here. It goes above that little shock adjuster, and then it comes out kind of down there, right under the subframe. right beneath where the VIN number is. So it's going to go through that zip tie. And then if you can see, that's it right there, with the end stripped off. And that bolt behind it, you can see that bolt, it's just got one wire going to it. That's the ground point. So that's the battery ground wire right there on that bolt. So we're just going to connect the ground wire to that bolt. And we're going to be using these two pieces here with this crimper. Make sure so this little black piece is a shrink wrap. Make sure you put that on first. Then you crimp that, and then you use your heat to shrink it around the connector and wire. So we're going to take care of that one. Okay, so there's the connector crimped on, and this particular connector is only going to go on the wire, not on the sheathing. So you can see I've got it right up against the outer portion. So then we're okay, there we are. That's the ground wire connected to the grounding point. All that remains is connecting the stator wires with your remaining parts here. Okay, so we got the 3 stator wires in the plug there. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. Just a couple of last things is just make sure to hook your battery back up. Also, on the old stator connector, you can use your old clip here just to keep that thing in place so it doesn't go anywhere. That's it.